I never should have volunteered for this experiment. But how could I have known? The promise of advancing neuroscience, of potentially saving lives, it was too tempting to resist. Now, as I sit in this sterile lab, electrodes attached to my temples and fear gnawing at my insides, I wonder if I'll ever see the real world again. My name is Dr. Ethan Reeves, and I'm about to enter hell, or purgatory, or whatever you want to call the place where lost consciousnesses go. Are you ready, Dr. Reeves? Dr. Sarah Chen's voice crackles through the intercom. She's watching me from behind a thick pane of glass, her face a mask of professional concern. I give her a tight nod. As ready as I'll ever be. Remember the rules, Ethan, she says, her tone softening slightly. They're not just for your safety, but for the patient's as well. The rules. 10 commandments for traversing the Mindscape. I recite them silently, a mantra against the fear threatening to overwhelm me. 1. Never reveal your true identity to the patients. 2. Limit each dive to 60 minutes real-world time. 3. Do not attempt to alter the patient's memories. 4. Avoid physical contact with any entities in the realm. 5. Never bring items from the real world into the Mindscape. 6. Do not attempt to wake yourself up prematurely. 7. Resist all temptations offered by the realm. 8. Report any anomalies immediately upon waking. 9. Do not discuss the experience with anyone outside the project. 10. If you encounter your reflection, abort the mission immediately. Initiating neural link in 3, 2, 1. A jolt of electricity courses through my body. My vision blurs, and the lab is fading like mist in the morning sun. For a moment, there's nothing but darkness and a sensation of falling. Then I open my eyes. The world around me is wrong. That's the only way to describe it. I'm standing on what appears to be a city street, but the buildings are twisted, their architecture defying physics. The sky above is a swirling vortex of dark clouds, occasionally lit by silent lightning flashes, and it's quiet, so unnaturally quiet. I take a deep breath, reminding myself that none of this is real. It's a construct, a shared hallucination created by the combined subconsciouses of multiple coma patients. My job is to find them, to guide them back to consciousness. Hello? I call out, my voice echoing strangely in the empty street. Is anyone there? A flicker of movement catches my eye. A figure darts between two buildings, quick as a shadow. I follow, my heart racing. Wait, I shout. I'm here to help. I round the corner and find myself in a small courtyard. In the center stands a woman, her back to me. She's wearing a hospital gown, and her long, dark hair hangs limply down her back. Hello, I say softly, approaching her slowly. My name is John. The lie feels bitter on my tongue, but I remember the first rule. Never reveal your true identity. What's your name? The woman turns, and I have to stifle a gasp. Her face is blurred as if someone had taken an eraser to a photograph, but her voice, when she speaks, is crystal clear. I don't remember, she says. I don't remember anything. I nod, trying to keep my voice calm and reassuring. That's okay. I'm here to help you remember, to help you find your way back. She takes a step towards me, her hand outstretched. You can help me? I instinctively step back, remembering rule number 4, no physical contact. Yes, I can help you. But we need to do this carefully. Can you tell me the last thing you do remember? The woman's blurred face contorts as if she's concentrating hard. I was in a car. It was raining. The lights were so bright, and then she trails off, her body starting to flicker like a bad television signal. Stay with me, I urge her. Focus on my voice. The car, the rain, the lights, those are good. Those are real memories. Hold on to them. As I speak, the world around us starts to shift. The twisted buildings melt away, replaced by a rain-slicked highway. I can hear the distant rumble of thunder and see the headlights of oncoming cars. The woman becomes more solid, her features slowly coming into focus. She's young, probably in her mid-20s, with wide brown eyes full of fear and confusion. I remember, she whispers. There was a truck. It came out of nowhere. I nod encouragingly. That's right. You were in an accident, but you're not dead. You're in a coma, and I'm here to guide you back. Suddenly, a loud horn blares behind us. I spin around to see a massive truck barreling towards us, its headlights blinding in the darkness. No, the woman screams. Not again. I grab her arm, forgetting the rule about physical contact in my panic. It's not real. I shout over the noise. It's just a memory. You can change it. You can wake up. The truck is almost upon us. I can feel the heat of its engine and smell the burning rubber of its tires. The woman is frozen in terror, her eyes wide and unseeing. In desperation, I do the only thing I can think of. I step in front of her, shielding her with my body. "Wake up!" I roar, staring down the oncoming truck. "Wake up!" There's a moment of searing pain, a flash of light, and then I jolt awake in the lab, gasping for air. Alarms are blaring, and I can hear Dr. Chen's frantic voice over the intercom. Ethan, can you hear me? What happened?" I try to speak, but my throat is raw as if I've been screaming. I manage to croak out, "The patient. Is she?" "She's awake, Ethan," Sarah says, her voice filled with wonder. "Monica Ray is car accident victim in a coma for 6 months. She just opened her eyes." Relief floods through me, followed quickly by exhaustion. I did it. I actually brought someone back. But as the adrenaline fades, a chilling realization sets in. I broke the rules. I revealed too much, made physical contact, and interfered directly with a memory. And worst of all, I tried to sacrifice myself, my consciousness, in that realm. What would be the consequences of those transgressions? I noticed something that turns my blood into ice as if an answer. My hand, the one that grabbed the woman in the Mindscape, is covered in tiny cuts as if it had been peppered with shards of glass. Somehow, the damage had followed me back to the real world. What else had I brought back with me? The next few hours passed in a blur of medical tests and debriefings. Dr. Chen and her team poked and prodded at me, drew blood, ran brain scans, and peppered me with questions. I answered as best I could, carefully omitting any mentions of broken rules or mysterious injuries. "Fascinating," Dr. Chen muttered, reviewing my test results. "Your neural activity during the dive was off the charts, and the way you connected with the patient, it's unprecedented." I flexed my hand, the tiny cuts now nothing more than faint red lines. They had faded quickly, but I knew what I had seen, what I had felt. "When can I go again?" I asked, trying to keep the eagerness out of my voice. Dr. Chen looked up sharply. "Ethan, you need rest. We need to analyze the data, make sure there are no adverse effects." "I'm fine," I insisted, "and there are more patients waiting. We can't waste time." She studied me for a long moment, her dark eyes unreadable. Finally, she sighed. "Tomorrow, not a minute sooner, and Ethan." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Be mindful of the rules. They exist for a reason." I nodded, guilt churning in my stomach. If only she knew. That night, I dreamed of twisted cities and screaming women, of trucks that bore down on me with glowing red eyes. I woke up gasping, my sheets soaked with sweat. As I stumbled to the bathroom to splash water on my face, I saw my reflection in the mirror. For a split second, I could have sworn my eyes were as black as coal. I blinked, and they were normal again. Just a trick of the light. It had to be. The next day, I was back in the lab, electrodes in place, ready to dive again. This time, my target was a young man named Alex Torres, a college student who had fallen into a coma after a drug overdose. "Remember, Ethan," Dr. Chen's voice came through the intercom. 60 minutes, no exceptions." I closed my eyes as the familiar jolt of electricity coursed through me. When I opened them again, I was standing in what looked like a rundown nightclub. The air was thick with smoke, and pulsing music played at a volume just below audible. Shadowy figures writhed on the dance floor, their movements jerky and unnatural. I made my way through them, searching for Alex. I found him slumped in a booth, a needle dangling from his arm. His eyes were open but unseeing, glazed over with a film of white. "Alex," I said, keeping my voice low and calm. "Can you hear me?" His head lolled towards me, a string of drool hanging from his lip. Who are you?" he slurred. "A friend," I lied smoothly. "I'm here to take you home." Alex's face contorted into a sneer. "Don't want to go home. It's nice here. Peaceful." I looked around at the nightmarish club, the twisted dancers, the oppressive atmosphere. Peaceful was not the word I would have chosen. "This isn't real, Alex," I said, fighting to keep the frustration out of my voice. "You're in a coma. Your family is waiting for you." "Family?" he mumbled. "Don't have. Don't need." I was losing him. I could see his form starting to blur, melding with the shadows of the booth. In desperation, I reached out and grabbed his arm, ignoring the voice in my head screaming about Rule 4. The moment I touched him, the world around us shattered. We were falling through darkness, fragments of memories whirling past us like a deranged kaleidoscope. I saw flashes of Alex's life, a little boy crying as his parents fought, a teenager sneaking pills from a medicine cabinet, a young man staring at himself in a mirror, hatred burning in his eyes. "Wake up," I shouted, my voice lost in the maelstrom. "Fight it, Alex. Remember who you are." We hit bottom with a jolt that knocked the breath out of me. We were in a small, sterile room, a hospital room. Alex lay on the bed, tubes and wires connecting him to softly beeping machines. A woman sat by his bedside, her face lined with grief and exhaustion. "Mom?" Alex's voice was small, childlike. The woman's head snapped up, hope blazing in her red-rimmed eyes. "Alex? Baby, can you hear me?" I felt a tugging sensation as if something was trying to pull me back. My time was almost up. "Go to her, Alex," I urged. "She's waiting for you. Just reach out and take her hand." Alex looked at me, tears streaming down his face. "I'm scared," he whispered. "I know," I said softly, "but you're stronger than you think, and you're not alone." With a shuddering breath, Alex turned back to his mother. He stretched out his hand, inching closer to hers. Their fingers touched. The world exploded in white light. I came to the lab, alarms blaring once again. Dr. Chen was shouting something, but I couldn't make out the words over the ringing in my ears. "Did it work?" I gasped. "Is he awake?" Dr. Chen's face swam into focus above me. She looked pale, shaken. "Yes, he's awake. Ethan, what happened in there? Your vital signs went haywire. We almost lost you." I tried to sit up, but a wave of dizziness forced me back down. "I'm fine," I lied. "Just intense, that's all." As the medical team fussed over me, I became aware of a strange sensation. My skin felt too tight, like something was trying to push itself out. And there was a whispering at the edge of my consciousness, too faint to make out words but unsettling. What was happening to me? As if in answer, I caught sight of my reflection in a nearby monitor. For just a moment, my face wasn't my own. It was Alex's, contorted in a silent scream. I blinked, and it was gone. But the whispering remained, growing louder with each passing second. What had I brought back this time? And more importantly, how long could I keep diving before I lost myself completely? The next few days passed in a haze of dives and debriefings. I brought another patient back to consciousness with each journey into the Mindscape. A teenage girl who had fallen from a cliff while hiking. An elderly man who had suffered a massive stroke. A pregnant woman was involved in a hit and run. Each success was celebrated by the team and hailed as a breakthrough in neuroscience. But with each dive, the rules became more challenging to follow. The line between the Mindscape and reality blurred further, and the whispering in my head grew louder, more insistent. It was after my 7th dive that things truly began to unravel. I found myself in a vast, empty desert. The sky above was a sickly green, and 2 suns blazed down mercilessly. In the distance, I could see a figure hunched over in the sand. As I approached, I realized it was a man in his mid-40s, dressed in a tattered business suit. This was Thomas Gregor, a high-powered executive who had collapsed during a board meeting. "Mr. Gregor," I called out, "I'm here to help you." He looked up at me, his face gaunt and sunburned. "Help," he croaked. "There's no help here, only failure." I knelt beside him, careful not to touch. "This isn't real, Mr. Gregor. You're in a coma. I can guide you back." He laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "Back to what? Deadlines? Responsibilities? The constant fear of not being good enough?" He gestured at the barren landscape. "This is what my life has always been. Empty, pointless." I felt a surge of frustration. We ran out of time, and I couldn't afford to play therapist to this man's existential crisis. But as I opened my mouth to argue, I felt a strange shift in the air. The desert around us began to change. The sand turned to glass, reflecting our images thousands of times over. And in each reflection, I saw not just Gregor and myself, but all the other patients I had guided back. Their faces were twisted in pain and accusation. "You did this," Gregor said, his voice suddenly strong. "You brought us back to suffer." I stumbled backward, my heart racing. "No, I saved you." "Did you?" The voice was no longer Gregor's. It was a chorus of voices, all the patients speaking as one. "Or did you condemn us?" I turned to run, but everywhere I looked, I saw reflections, accusing eyes, pointing fingers. The whispers in my head became a roar. "Stop," I shouted, clutching my head. "This isn't real." But it felt real. More real than anything I had experienced before. I could feel the heat of the sun, and smell the acrid tang of fear in the air. And worst of all, I could feel the truth in their words seeping into my bones. In desperation, I did the one thing I had been warned never to do. I looked directly at my own reflection. For a moment, I saw myself as I truly was, haggard, wild-eyed, a man on the brink of losing himself. Then the image shifted, and I was staring at a creature of shadow and smoke with glowing red eyes and a mouth full of razor-sharp teeth. I screamed. The world shattered. I came to the lab floor, my body convulsing, foam flecking my lips. The medical team was in a frenzy around me, shouting orders and prepping emergency equipment. Ethan, can you hear me?" Dr. Chen's face swam into view, her eyes wide with fear. I tried to speak, but all that came out was a gurgling moan. My body felt wrong, as if my skin was trying to crawl off my bones. "We're losing him," someone shouted. "Get the crash cart!" As darkness began to creep in at the edges of my vision, I saw Dr. Chen lean in close. "What did you see, Ethan?" she whispered urgently. "What did you bring back?" With the last of my strength, I grabbed her arm. "The rules," I gasped. "Break the rules, and the rules break you." Then the darkness took me. I floated in a void, formless, timeless. Gradually, I became aware of voices around me, muffled as if coming from underwater. Unprecedented neural activity, coma as we've never seen, ethical concerns about continuing. I tried to open my eyes, to signal that I could hear them, but my body wouldn't respond. I was trapped, just like the patients I had tried to save. Time lost all meaning. I drifted in and out of consciousness, catching snippets of conversation and feeling the occasional touch of a hand on my arm or forehead. But mostly, I was alone with the whispers. They were clearer now, no longer just noise at the edge of my awareness. They spoke of ancient things, of the spaces between worlds, of the price of meddling with forces beyond human understanding. And they spoke of the rules, the true rules, not the pale imitations we had created to try and protect ourselves, rules that governed the very fabric of consciousness and reality. I learned, I understood, and slowly I changed. I'm not sure how long I was under, weeks, months, years, but eventually I opened my eyes. The lab was dark and quiet. A single figure sat by my bedside, head bowed in sleep. Dr. Chen looked older and more careworn than I remembered. I reached out and touched her hand. She jolted awake, her eyes widening in disbelief as she saw me. "Ethan?" she breathed. You're awake?" I smiled, feeling the stretch of muscles long unused. "Hello, Sarah," I said, my voice rough from disuse. "I'm back." She burst into tears, clutching my hand. "We thought we'd lost you. After you collapsed, the things we saw on the scans. It was like your mind had been rewritten." "It was," I said simply. "But it's okay. I understand now." Sarah wiped her eyes, looking at me curiously. "Understand what?" I sat up, feeling strength flow back into my limbs. "Everything. The Mindscape, the comas, the rules. We got it all wrong, Sarah. We were like children playing with fire." "What do you mean?" she asked, a note of fear creeping into her voice. I swung my legs over the side of the bed, standing up for the first time in who knows how long. It felt good to be vertical again. The people we saved, we didn't help them. We dragged them back to a reality they had chosen to leave. Sarah stood up, backing away slightly. "Ethan, you're not making sense. We brought people out of comas. We gave them their lives back." I shook my head, feeling a wave of pity for her limited understanding. "We interrupted their journeys. The Mindscape isn't a prison, Sarah. It's a crossroads, a place of transition." "Transition to what?" I smiled, and for a moment I let her see what I had become. Her face paled, and she stumbled back with a gasp. "To whatever comes next," I said. "And now, thanks to our meddling, the barriers between worlds are weakening. The whispers are getting louder. Can't you hear them?" Sarah pressed herself against the wall, her eyes wide with terror. "What? What are you?" "I'm what happens when you break all the rules," I said softly. "I'm what comes through when you tear holes in reality." I took a step towards her, my form flickering between my human shape and something other. "And I'm here to correct our mistakes." As Sarah's scream echoed through the lab, I felt the boundaries of reality flex and warp around me. The whispers rose to a crescendo, welcoming me, urging me on. It was time to make new rules. The months that followed were a blur of activity. The world wasn't ready for the truth, but I was determined to prepare for it. I moved through society like a ghost, sometimes visible, sometimes not, always working towards my goal. Dr. Chen tried to stop me at first. She alerted the authorities, attempted to shut down the project, and even tried to have me committed. But how do you stop someone who can slip between realities as easily as stepping through a door? In the end, she became my first convert. I showed her the truth and opened her eyes to the vastness of consciousness that lay beyond our limited perception. The terror in her eyes turned to wonder, then to zealous dedication. Together, we rebuilt the project from the ground up. No more misguided rescue attempts. Now, we were facilitators and guides for those ready to transition. The new rules were simple. 1. Accept that consciousness is not bound to a single reality. 2. Understand that comas are not prisons, but gateways. 3. Guide, don't force. 4. Respect the journey of each individual. 5. Be prepared for the unexpected. 6. Embrace the whispers, they hold ancient wisdom. Never assume your perception is the only truth. 8. Be willing to let go of your old self. 9. Recognize that death is not the end, merely a transition. 10. Remember, in breaking the old rules, we become the new ones. Our work didn't go unnoticed. Government agencies came sniffing around, drawn by rumors of miraculous recoveries and whispers of otherworldly phenomena. Religions took note, some denouncing us as heretics, others cautiously exploring the implications of our discoveries. But for every opponent, we gained 100 followers. People who had glimpsed what lay beyond during near-death experiences. Grieving families are desperate to understand what has happened to their loved ones. Philosophers and scientists are intrigued by the implications of our work. And always, there were the coma patients. No longer victims to be rescued, but travelers to be guided. I still entered the Mindscape regularly, but now I moved through it with the ease of a native. The landscapes of tangled consciousness became as familiar to me as my own reflection, which admittedly continued to be a source of surprise and occasional horror. One day, about a year after my awakening, I found myself in a familiar desert. The sun blazed overhead, the sand stretched endlessly in every direction, and there, huddled in the dunes, was a figure I recognized. "Mr. Gregor," I said softly, approaching the man. "We meet again." He looked up, his face no longer gaunt and desperate, but serene. "I remember you," he said. "You tried to bring me back before." I nodded, sitting down beside him in the sand. "I did. I thought I was helping you," Gregor smiled. "And now? Now I understand that it wasn't my decision to make. This journey is yours, Mr. Gregor. I'm just here to offer guidance if you want it." He considered this for a long moment, his eyes scanning the horizon. "You know," he said finally, "I used to think this place was a prison, an endless desert of my failures and regrets. And now," I prompted, "now I see it's a blank canvas, a place to start over, to build something new." He turned to me, his eyes shining with a light that had nothing to do with the twin suns above. I think I'm ready to see what's beyond the dunes." I stood, offering him my hand. This time, there was no rule against touching, no fear of consequences. "Then let's find out together." As we walked towards the shimming horizon, the landscape began to shift and change. The desert gave way to lush forests, then to soaring mountains, then to vistas that defied earthly description. With each step, Gregor's form became less solid and more luminous. "Is this death?" he asked, his voice filled with awe rather than fear. "No," I replied, feeling my own form start to dissolve into the radiant energy around us. "This is what comes next." We stepped forward, into the light, into the whispers, into the infinite possibilities that lay beyond the boundaries of a single consciousness. Back in the lab, my physical body opened its eyes. Sarah Chen was there, as always, monitoring the equipment. "Welcome back," she said. "How was it?" I smiled, the expression slightly inhuman on my transformed face. "Another successful transition. Mr. Gregor sends his regards from the other side." Sarah nodded, making a note in her ever-present tablet. "That makes 17 this month. The whispers are getting louder, Ethan. More people are hearing them, even without our help." "Good?" I said, standing up and stretching. My body flickered, briefly showing the swirling energy and impossible geometries that now made up my true form. "It's almost time." "For what?" Sarah asked, though I could tell from the glint in her eye that she already knew the answer. "For the next phase," I replied. "We've been facilitators, guides for individuals, but soon, very soon, the barriers between realities will be thin enough for everyone to see the truth. I walked to the window, looking out at the city below. Humans scurried about their daily lives, unaware of the wonders and terrors that lurked just beyond their perception, unaware that their world was about to change forever. "It's time to wake up, humanity," I said softly. "All of it." As if in response, the whispers rose to a crescendo in my mind. I could feel the fabric of reality flex and strain around me. The old rules were crumbling, and we were the architects of what would come next. I turned back to Sarah, my form now barely containing the energies within. "Are you ready?" She stood, her own body beginning to shimmer with otherworldly light. "Ready." Together, we stepped forward, not into the Mindscape this time, but into the world itself. With each step, the whispers grew louder, reality rippled, and the final barriers began to fall. The Purgatory Protocol was complete. The transition was beginning. And somewhere, in the spaces between worlds, I heard the universe take a deep breath, preparing for what was to come. If you enjoyed this story, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more spine-chilling tales. Don't forget to hit the bell icon to stay updated with our latest videos. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so leave a comment below and share your scary encounters. Also, consider joining the Fear Frequencies community for exclusive perks and early access to new content. Your support helps us create even more thrilling stories. And if you really enjoyed it, please consider leaving a super thanks.